Joining us again on Sports Talk, ATL's Fox 5's Kelly Price. Kelly, you were in the building. You were covering this the entire weekend. I guess the first thing I want to ask you, because there's a lot to dive into, is what was your just personal initial reaction? Because I know we were doing a show live, and I think there's a picture of us just jaws drop. I look like a deer in the headlights. Whether you like the pick now, 6 days later, or you're going to like it in the future, just the initial shock of the pick. I don't care who you are. I think everyone kind of felt the same feeling.
Oh, 100%. In the little media room where all the media contingent for the Falcons watch the draft as we wait, to see what happens, but also we wait for Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morse to come talk after the first round is done. We're all in this kind of little room where we have it on the TV, just like anyone at home would be watching. And we all just audibly gasped. Like, no one knew that this was coming, obviously. And like to your point, a week later, the whole NFL world is still talking about this. Like, there's really no one talking about, all right, well, Drake May went here and Caleb Williams went there. Like, everyone's talking about where Michael Penix Jr. is going and the move that Atlanta made. And I think that's speaks to how shocking it was to the entire NFL landscape, just people in Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a storyline. If Arthur Blank was worried about making headlines this year, I mean, he doesn't have to worry anymore because as long as Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix are on the same roster, the Falcons will be in the national narratives. And honestly, I kind of love it. It is nice to be mentioned with, the Cowboys and obviously the Bears with Caleb Williams and everything like that. But kind of talk us through 6 days later, the initial reaction is kind of sunk in at this point. Now you've kind of took time to sleep on it, analyze it, ask some people about it. Now give us your reaction 6 days later.
I think my reaction now is very similar to what it was on draft night when we heard from Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris about kind of their forward-looking vision on this whole thing. I mean, obviously that's what the vision was from the beginning. It's like, okay, now I see the vision. At first, obviously there's a lot of shock value to it, but it makes a lot of sense that this regime, especially Terry, because he was here when the whole Matt Ryan thing went down, that he kind of has some PTSD from that. And he doesn't want to be back in this situation again where you're going from Mariota to Desmond Ritter, Taylor Heineke, this carousel that they've been on the last couple of years when they had a potentially Hall of Fame quarterback that was there. They could have planned for this a little bit better. And I think they look back at it and say exactly that, which is why they did this. And I think the other part of it is there's that part, right? But the other part is that they loved Michael Penix that much. I think it's come out in reports and stuff that if he wasn't there or if there were some other quarterbacks there, that they wouldn't have done this. It's just because it's also the player that they really liked in this draft, the quarterback they specifically really liked. And you got to get behind people that really have that much conviction about their pick. So those two things to me make it make sense. Yeah, of course there's the injury concerns, the age concerns, and obviously the concerns with paying Kirk Cousins a boatload of money. So I see all the sides kind of it, especially like the mad fans, the rational fans, and I think more fans, at least what I'm seeing on social media and stuff, as it sinks in, they're like, okay, this actually does make quite a bit of sense. And if you had told Falcons fans even 4 months ago, or whatever it was before they signed Kirk Cousins, that this team drafted Michael Penix, they would have been elated. So I think that's the other kind of like funny part of this is now you have two quarterbacks, you have a long-term succession plan, which is, a really foresighted kind of way to approach this. We've seen it work for teams like Green Bay in the past, Kansas City. I know a lot of people have talked about Patrick Mahomes and them trading up to get him. We'll see if Michael Penix turns out to be Patrick Mahomes level, but if he does, the Falcons look pretty smart in doing this.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Terry Fontenot's PTSD and you talked about it just in terms of the Falcons, but you could actually go back and I think Albert Breer wrote about it. The New Orleans Saints, they wanted Patrick Mahomes and they watched Kansas City hop them one pick. They thought they had kept it under good wraps, that this was their guy. They didn't think anyone was going to jump over him and they weren't a little aggressive enough. Someone came up in the Kansas City Chiefs now 3 Super Bowls later. I mean, you want to talk about PTSD. You can talk about the 3 years with the Falcons, but that will put a scar on you for the rest of your life.
Right.
Now, is anyone going to be the next Patrick Mahomes? I'm not sure you can say that, but I understand in terms of like what he's been through. missing out on a quarterback like that he had that much conviction, or maybe the entire room, the entire team had that much conviction about, and they missed out on him. I mean, that's a level of PTSD that I don't even think Falcons can relate to.
Well, I think,
let's not compare PTSD, because the Falcons fan base has quite a bit of that.
Terry Fontenot is not a dumb guy, and neither is Raheem Morris. Nobody in those positions is dumb. They knew the backlash, the storylines, all that was going to come with selecting Michael Penix Jr. there. And I think, I think most Falcons fans don't have a problem with Michael Penix, the prospect, more so maybe the process that, Kirk Cousins is here. Michael Penix is also here. I think most people can get behind Michael Penix, the player. Like, I do agree with you. I think most people are kind of wrapping their heads around it. Like, yeah, the kid can absolutely spin the rock. Like, I think he's going to be a fine quarterback in the NFL. But the process is where, I think I have a hard time wrapping my head around. And it is with, I'm playing both sides where you're talking about, you had the conviction to draft that guy. I got to give you props because, Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris knew exactly what was going to happen when they drafted Michael Penix. Knowing that and still doing it with the conviction, going up to the media, you guys, and still saying, like, this is our guy. We weren't going to be here in the couple of years. We tend on winning. We took our guy here. And, without them being able to say it, they said in effective words, just, swallow it. That's basically what they said. We got our guy, swallow it. We're moving forward. And I kind of respect that.
Right. And I go back to something that Terry told me literally like an hour before the draft when I talked to him on our pre-draft special. He talked about how we don't plan on picking this high in the near future. And I know a lot of fans kind of like laughed at that, like, are you serious? But when you really think about, all right, if they have Kirk Cousins and it goes the way that they want it to, where they at least win this division, which I think is like the very bare minimum of what they could do, they're going to make the playoffs if that's the case, right? And then you're picking somewhere in like 20 to 25, depending on like where you finish at the end of the year. You're not going to get a quarterback to this level next year or in the future if you have even further success after that. So I see the vision too of that. And like, maybe they've already kind of looked at this next quarterback class and like, there's no one there that we're super in love with. Things can change, obviously. But I think that's another part of it that hasn't been discussed as much, is that, they really probably won't be picking at number 8 overall. If they do, things have gone really bad in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So that's my other thing that I've been thinking about too.
Let's hope that they don't fall in love with another quarterback, because I'm not sure that they might not take him. No, I like, it seems like, and I think we related to something where you're in a grocery store and you're super hungry and you're just picking everything that you like. And that's kind of seems what the Falcons did, because they obviously liked Kirk Cousins. I think the thing that me and Alex both, and I think most Falcons fans that don't necessarily agree with the decision, is the fact that you paid Kirk Cousins. And if you had this much conviction, which you clearly do, because you're willing to take this kind of backlash for the pick, you obviously were high on Michael Penix. Like, if you're that high on him, why sign this kind of hedge your bets pick with Kirk Cousins? But Kelly, I want to ask you, because you have a really good pulse on this team. And I heard Jesse Bates have some quotes yesterday speaking highly of Raheem Morris, Kirk Cousins, and the Penix and Terry Fontenot. How important is that going to be? Because they can say all the nice stuff, but Michael Penix is going to be out there during OTA spinning it. Kirk Cousins is going to still be recovering from his torn Achilles. Penix is going to be the QB1. If he goes out there throwing against air, he's going to look good. I can almost guarantee you he's going to look good. And Cousins doesn't have that cachet within the organization. He doesn't have, the teammates don't know him. The city doesn't know him. Even the own coaches don't really know him. Like, managing this situation and having guys like Jesse Bates kind of help you through this waters, it kind of seems to me like Raheem Morris needs to keep Jesse Bates, Chris Lindstrom, those leaders of this football team, arm in arm to manage this situation properly.
Right. And actually, Jesse Bates talked exactly about being in line or in step with what the coaching staff and front office wants as a leader on this team. And, we'll see how it kind of looks. But I think that the other part of it that is interesting to kind of monitor is that, Kirk Cousins is also a competitor. Like, everyone's talking about, Michael Penix being like, he's coming in, he's maybe going to, look really good, to your point. But Kirk Cousins is also a competitor. We'll see what the injury situation kind of allows him to do. But I think, if anything, it's going to make both of them stronger, because they're going to be both really strong, quarterbacks in this room, really helping each other and competing with each other. I talked to Michael Penix's high school coach actually yesterday or Monday, and he was like, it's not going to surprise me if he like challenges Kirk Cousins in ways, because even though he's a rookie and he's still learning the NFL and ins and outs and things like that, he's the kind of guy who has elevated people around him, whether it's another quarterback or other receivers or whatever it might be on a team. He's done that from the high school level. We saw him do it at Indiana, Washington. Maybe he'll do it with the Falcons. That seems to be what everyone thinks he's going to bring. And I think those intangibles, or whatever you want to call it, is another layer of this pick for Terry Fontenot in this front office. They love that kind of ethos, is like the word they always use, the makeup, and we always hear them talk about. Those things are also what they wanted to bring in with Michael Penix. It wasn't just being a day one starter like how, Caleb Williams is going to be for the Bears, or a team like that. I think that's the other part of it that's going to make both of them better. And Kirk Cousins is a pro. He's a class act. I mean, he's going to know, what's going on throughout, like with his injury. And if he, in the future, things don't go as well, Michael Penix kind of arises, then I think that, that's going to be a good situation for everyone.